Question is about atheism. Uh, I live in Norway, so I tend to deal with Christians and atheists. They are like 50% in this country. My second question is, I know that the logical arguments about the Kalam cosmological arguments lead to a deistic kind of God, but how can we show that Allah is a conscious God who has a will without I don't know how to say, but without making it too abstract?
Well, I mean, look, I don't think that I think you can, on logical grounds, prove that God has a will. And for example, in medieval scholarship, this was referred to as takhsis. This is the argument. That takhsis is the theory of particularization. And the theory basically, or the argument of particularization, takhsis, it goes as follows. And Al-Ghazali mentions this along with a lot of other medieval scholars. They say, look, if you look at the contingent things in the world, they all have an explanation outside of themselves. So, for example, this pink cup. Can you see this pink cup? It has an explanation outside of itself, namely that the materials were created and formatted in a certain, or structured in a certain way, so as to make it cylindrical and to make it kind of have a surface at the bottom of it, so that I can put water inside of it, as is the case, right? So how do I explain the cylindricality of this cup? I can explain it using the materials, or talking about the materials, or I can explain this cup outside of itself. Now, there is no necessary way that this cup could have been. There's no reason. I can take this cup out of existence. Indeed, there was a time where this cup probably wasn't even in existence. So this cup is a possible existence. It's not a necessary existence. Now,
What's the difference?
right, it's not a necessary thing. It's a possible thing. Meaning what? It's dependent. It could have not been the case, and it can be taken out. I can destroy this cup. I guarantee you, I can destroy this cup. You know, I can shred it up. I can burn it. I can make it short, vaporize it, whatever it is. Yeah. The fact that I can do that to this cup means that this cup is not eternally necessary. It doesn't have to be the case in pre-eternity or post-eternity. This cup can be destroyed, yeah, and reformatted into something else, vapor or something, yeah. Now, the point is, the fact that I can do this means the cup can be something else, okay? The fact that we have objects in the universe like this jug or this cup, which can be something else, is evidence that it was particularized. So this jug has a particular shape. Are you with me?
Improvement. Yeah.
Right. So if this jug has a particular shape other than another, so it can be this or it can be that, but it is this. This once again, cylindrical jug could have been circular or spherical. Yeah, it could have been a spherical jug, right? But it's actually cylindrical. But I can make it into a spherical jug if I wanted it to be. This fact, and the fact that there's nothing which inheres within this jug which makes it necessarily cylindrical, is evidence to the fact that it was particularized or made in one shape rather than another. Oh, there's no contradiction here, right? Are you with me so far? This thing was made into one shape, whereas it could have been made into another shape. Is there any controversy in this statement?
No.
Is there controversy in this? No. Okay. So, and that's the past tense. I can change this jug into another shape. Yes?
Sir.
Now, if I change this jug into another shape, how have I done so? Using my will, right?
Sir.
Okay. Now, the point is this, is that the universe is one way out of possible alternative ways. There could have been other ways. And there can be other ways where the universe can be reformatted, or parts of the universe, very much like this jug. I can make this into another shape. No one can argue that this jug is necessarily cylindrical.
So.
Because if someone foolish enough argues that this jug is necessarily cylindrical, then I can disprove them by changing its shape. Does that make sense? Because if I change the shape of this jug from cylindrical jug into a spherical jug, I have falsified the theory that this jug is cylindrical. Necessary. Because necessary means it has to be one way forever. Yeah? Okay. Now.
But can you give me an example for
a
bigger version, a universe or a part of the universe?
Look, I'm saying this part of the universe, this jug.
Okay.
No one can argue it's necessarily cylindrical.
So.
Because that would mean, necessary means it can't be any other way. But I can make this jug into a spherical jug. That would disprove the fact that it's necessarily cylindrical. I can change it myself with my hand. Yeah? Now, the point is this. The whole universe is one way and not another way. Just like this jug is cylindrical and not spherical. There could have been another shape this jug could have, but it's not. Now, the fact that that is the case, that the universe is particularized in a certain way or specified in a certain way rather than other logically possible ways, is evidence that there was a particularization or a specification. And now the question is, where did this specification come from? Was it a random generation? Okay. Or, as we would say, was there a specifier? We say, look, just like this cylindrical jug was specified into cylindricality, such is the case with the universe, that it was one way out of a possible set of many different possible ways that it could have been or it can be, and yet it is one way. And this particularization or specification is evidence of a specifier or a particularizer. Okay, and in this case, we say that if there was a specifier or a particularizer, this specifier must have had a choice to make. Because like right now, this cylindrical jug could have been spherical or it could have been cylindrical. I have a choice to make. I can make this into spherical jug, or it can remain as a cylindrical jug. Now, the fact that it is one way and not another means that there was a choice that was made, let's use it in the passive sense, and that a choice actualized. And if it was an actualizer which actualized this choice, which we, with the Kalam cosmological argument, would attribute it to the first cause, that would evidence will. Because will is, what is will? Volition or will is when you have choices to make, basically. And you choose one thing rather than another. The fact that this jug is cylindrical rather than spherical is absolute evidence that this jug, there was a choice that was made. That this jug was either going to be spherical or cylindrical. And the choice that actualized was that this was cylindrical. And therefore, you can either attribute this to chance, which is, we can have a discussion about the non-existence of this thing called randomness or chance, or to an actualizer or a specifier. We do the latter. In other words, we say it's the specifier or the actualizer that caused the particularization of the universe. So this is the evidence, or this is takhsis, this is the evidence of. And Al-Ghazali in his works, he says, he gives an example. He says that, for example, look at the planetary motion. The planets are going one way, right? He said the planets could have been revolving another way. Do you get the idea? He says, so therefore, there was a choice that was made. Either the planets could be going this way, let's say anti-clockwise, but it could be going clockwise, for the sake of argument. Such that if it was anti-clockwise, it would not be impossible. It's still logically conceivable, right? So this doesn't even affect. Someone may say, well, I'm a determinist. I believe everything was the case because of determination. We say that doesn't matter. Because this jug, even if you're a determinist, you cannot argue, okay, that I can't change this jug into another shape. You can't argue that. You can't argue that this jug is necessarily cylindrical. You cannot. You can't. How? I can make it into a sphere. That's it. You cannot argue that. So you have two choices. Either this jug is cylindrical, and this is what, by the way, Al-Baqillani mentions in his Kitab al-Tamheed. Very, very good. And he actually uses the example of a jug, by the way. I think, funny enough, I think he uses the example of a jug. And I think he actually uses the example of cylindricality as well. I can't remember exactly. So it's handy we have this here. He says, look, this jug, there's no property in this jug which necessarily makes it cylindrical, which inheres within this jug, which makes it cylindrical. For if that was the case, it would have been inconceivable to assume a state of affairs where this jug was ever out of cylindricality. And all things which are ever going to be cylindrical should all exist at one time. In other words, there should be no time in which this was not cylindrical or will not be cylindrical. Anyway, so the particularization or takhsis is evidence of a mukhassis or a particularizer.